Every year, fraudsters steal £20 billion from the public purse. News headlines tend to feature cases of big fraudsters in action, stealing thousands of pounds in benefits and taxes. But there's another, less obvious way scammers are looting the public purse, and they're crippling our health service.
Money that's going away from patient care is money that's not available for, in some cases, vulnerable patients to be treated.
Fraser Paterson is National Counter-Fraud Manager with NHS Scotland's Counter-Fraud Services. It's his job to tackle the growing problem of patient fraud, where people claim to be exempt from paying for dental and eye treatments, when in fact they're just swindling the system and bleeding the Scottish Health Service dry.
Whilst the majority of people who do claim those exemptions are correct to claim that way, it's estimated that some 14% are wrongly claimed. And they're either wrongly claimed for people who are defrauding the NHS or people who are mistaken about their entitlement to that exemption.
And those claims cost NHS Scotland over £11 million each year.
We have a declaration that we have to put when we submit our claims to say whether we've seen evidence of an exemption or not. The system is complicated, and I think that can have its own challenges as well.
It's understandable that some people do make genuine mistakes, believing they're entitled to help when they're not. But serial fraudsters are an ongoing worry that's costing NHS Scotland dearly, and they've decided enough is enough. In Livingston, near Edinburgh, a dedicated patient fraud team has been created.
NHS Scotland Counter-Fraud Services has a team of 6 dedicated patient claims officers whose job is to do nothing but identify patients who have claimed for exemption when they weren't entitled to.
Good morning, patient claims team. Gary speaking.
Can I just double check then, do you actually have a certificate that covers the dates that we're checking?
And to increase their chances of better understanding and less fraud, NHS Scotland have simplified the evidence required by patients who receive tax credits to prove they shouldn't be paying for their treatment.
You need to have an NHS tax credit exemption certificate, and that looks like a white credit card, basically, and it's issued by NHS Business Services Authority. And if you have one of them, then you're entitled to receive that treatment, and if you don't, you're not. And it's as simple as that.
Does your wife have a tax credit exemption certificate then, the small white plastic card?
While not everyone who receives benefits is entitled to free treatment, people receiving working tax credits or child tax credits may be eligible for an exemption card. And if they can't produce their card for their dentist or optician, the patient claims team will be sent their treatment form to check why.
We'll send off a sample every month, and that sample will go to the Department for Work and Pensions. It will go to our colleagues in the NHS in England Business Services Authority.
If you're entitled to the help through the tax credits, they send you a certificate to say so. And that's what we're looking to see if you have.
The majority of those will come back as confirming an exemption, but a significant number don't, and it's those patients to whom NHS Counter-Fraud Services contacts and asks them to either make that payment or to prove their exemption.
And Fraser's team have discovered a very specific problem. People falsely claiming to receive tax credits to make them exempt from dental payments are costing NHS Scotland over £3.25 million a year. And it's this group the team are honing in on.
A patient would come into a practice for a 6-monthly checkup or something like that. And if it's found that they need a further course of treatment which is chargeable, they're given the opportunity to explain whether they pay for the treatment, or if they don't, to tick a box under the exemption category that they would believe that they're exempt from.
To help dental practices crack down on cheats, NHS Scotland are now sending out investigators to help raise awareness on the front line.
Hello, I'm Graham Ross from Counter-Fraud Services. One area that we're trying to focus on just now is the tax credit exemptions.
There are a few that continually don't have their evidence with them.
Mark clearly on the form that evidence not provided, and those claims will come up to CFS and we'll carry out a 100% check.
And when the fraud team are handed details for people who never produce their exemption cards, there are only two options.
They have 28 days to either prove to us that they are entitled to that exemption or to pay us. If they don't do that in 28 days, then there is a penalty charge. And what that does is charges them 5 times on top of the cost of their treatment, up to a total of £100. It's clear for all concerned, for the patient, for the NHS as well, that the best thing to do is just to pay the money back there and then.
And thankfully, the Scottish initiative does seem to be making an impact.
Our team are able to recover hundreds of thousands of pounds from patients every year. Now that's money that both has a financial impact on the NHS in Scotland as a whole and a national impact based on the way the NHS is funded in Scotland, but it also has a patient impact as well. These are patients who are not receiving the treatment and services that they're entitled to, and some of them are desperately in need of that, so that's far better going into the NHS and staying in the NHS.